it's much more about building relationships through good content and engaging with customers, potential customers, clients, to nurture those relationships. It's about the long game. So my name's Tucker, and I'm on the content marketing team at Shopify. So I primarily write content for Shopify's blog, anything that's educational, informational, inspirational, that aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself might like. And for those of you that don't know, Shopify is the leading cloud-based commerce platform for small to medium-sized businesses that want to sell in-store, online, and anywhere in between. We also have our Shopify Plus team, which deals with more enterprise-level companies. So they're the guys that work with Google, Tesla, Wikipedia, and Oreo, just to name a few. And up until we started working with the enterprise side of things, Shopify didn't actually have a traditional sales team. A lot of our customer acquisition up until now has been focused primarily on inbound marketing. So things through the blog, search engine optimization, email marketing, and many more types of marketing. And that's why tonight I'll be talking about social selling and how I see it as the intersection of marketing, sales, and content. So I'd like to begin this evening with a bit of a story. So about 16 years ago, 17 now, back in 1999, there was a man named Shigeta Kurita who was working on revolutionizing the internet and the way that we use it. And he was working at a company called NTT Docomo based in Tokyo. And his team was working on one of the very first mobile internet platforms. But he realized something really quickly, and that was that back then you don't have these massively beautiful displays that we're so used to now. We didn't have these powerful computers in our pocket. So he was faced with this issue where the device was essentially a brick with a really small screen on it. And you can only fit 42 characters on it at once. And if you think of that in terms of Twitter, for instance, Twitter lets you tweet 140 characters. So it was about a third amount of characters compared to Twitter. So when he was out on his lunch break with his colleagues, he noticed that the way that people were interacting was much more than just speaking to one another. They were expressing themselves by smiling, laughing, and much more. And he wanted to figure out a way to include that on his mobile device. So he went back to his office, started playing around, and came up with this smiling emoji that we all know today. But little did Mr. Kurita know is that he was potentially paving the way for a new form of expression. And just recently, Oxford Dictionary announced their 2015 Word of the Year. Can anybody guess what it was? Okay, somebody got it. It's not. You might be thinking it was the term emoji, when in fact it was actually the representation of this emoji. They coined it the tears crying laughing emoji, and it was the most used emoji worldwide. They found that it was used in 20% of those social conversations in the United Kingdom and 17% of those in the United States. The term emoji itself has also seen a significant increase in its usage. So the green line here shows how frequently the term emoji was used online in 2014. Compared to 2015 here, you can see that there's quite a bit of growth. Now, things have changed in terms of how we communicate with one another. And this is much more than just interacting with friends and family. Businesses are starting to do it as well. So you can tweet the pizza emoji at Domino's, and they know that that means you want pizza, so they'll send you a pizza. Chevy actually wrote an entire press release made out of emojis last year. I don't know if I would recommend doing that because I've been trying to figure out what it says, and it's kind of hard to read it. But still, it shows that these companies are paying attention. They're understanding that the way we communicate is changing. And also, Retail Me Not, which is a large online platform for discount codes, is including emojis in their mobile push notifications. So they see that West Elm is offering a discount code for 70% off. They include a little house emoji in that push notification. I'm not going to be talking about emojis for the rest of the evening, even though I would kind of like to. The idea here and the overarching story behind this new way of communicating is that content and expressions and language is always changing. So your sales should follow suit. And a good example of this is AT&T. So back in 2011, AT&T was struggling with a relationship that they had with a Fortune 100 company. And they knew that they had to take an entirely new approach to how they were dealing with this customer. The relationship was falling apart. So what they ended up doing is they actually ended up building out a blog and writing content that was incredibly informational and educational that related to that Fortune 100 company's interests. But creating the content and publishing it to their blog wasn't enough. They knew that they had to get it in front of the stakeholders that were going to be the buyers on the other side of things. So what they ended up doing is they ended up hanging out on Twitter and LinkedIn and found out that the people of interest at this Fortune 100 company were also there. So they started pushing the content out onto Twitter and LinkedIn. And not only did they rebuild that trust and that relationship with this company, but they ended up closing the deal worth $47 million. And they attribute that back to social selling. And this is an example that I'm pretty close to. So Shopify Masters is a podcast that was started by an entrepreneur in his spare time. And what he was doing is he realized that there was no real official Shopify podcast at the time. So he was seeking out successful Shopify store owners, entrepreneurs, much like everybody that's in the room today. And he was asking them, hey, do you want to hop on a quick Skype call and we can talk about how you've become so successful? And the podcast was phenomenal. It was everybody in the community loved it. People at the office loved it. And we started hearing more and more about Shopify Masters. And the reason why is because Felix, the host of Shopify Masters, knew where Shopify staff was hanging out. He knew where a lot of our merchants were hanging out as well. And he made that very clear that he wanted our attention. So if I were tweeting something out, I would be sure to see moments later that he liked it or he favorited it on Twitter. If I posted something on the blog, he'd probably share the blog. So his name in Shopify Masters kept coming up. And just recently, which is really exciting, we actually had the opportunity, and now we're working with Felix and Shopify Masters in an official capacity. And that never would have happened if it wasn't for him sort of putting himself out there on social media and essentially selling himself to us in an underhand way. So some of you might be familiar with this. If you've checked your phone in the past hour or so, or if you're checking your phone right now and you're on Facebook, you might have scrolled past one of these videos. And what these are 30-second to a minute-long clips that BuzzFeed's Tasty channel has been producing for a while now. And what they are is they're this incredible form of content that's really easy to consume because they're just these recipes that are essentially, you put them together in 30 seconds or less. And the reason why I brought this up is because BuzzFeed has been able to grow this company, this channel, solely on Facebook to 1 billion views in December alone, just through Facebook. And you might be wondering, okay, whatever, this is like, what does this have to do with sales? What do cinnamon buns, what do cinnamon rolls, what do all these ridiculous videos have to do with sales? And yeah, it is very much entertainment. It's important to know that this entertainment value and the reach that these videos are getting have a huge impact on BuzzFeed's revenue. In fact, Gawker Media actually released some leaked financials from BuzzFeed that showed an unnamed company paid BuzzFeed $3.5 million to produce this type of content for them. So the idea there would be, for instance, if you are a famous chef like Martha Stewart and you have a new cinnamon bun recipe You pay BuzzFeed's Tasty $3.5 million to get it viewed by 35 million people. And this video in particular, it's been out for less than 2 months, and it's earned them close to 40 million views. So you might be wondering, what is it about social media that's so special when it comes to sales? Why is it that all these companies are using social as a platform to distribute their content? Why is BuzzFeed focusing this content solely on Facebook? I think the answer is really that social media is growing, and it's continuing to grow at an incredibly rapid pace. Right now, we're sitting at about 2 billion people worldwide that use social media, and it's estimated by 2018 that'll be closer to 2.5 billion. I hope that by 2018 it'll be much more than that. But if you think that's a bit ambitious, Facebook actually just released their Q4 results, and in that they said that they see in December 1.5 billion daily active users on Facebook alone. So how are all these people that are using social media as a sales tool doing? Why does it matter that BuzzFeed is putting all this content out there? Why is Shopify Masters such a successful podcast? And how did AT&T do, and are they continuing to do well with social selling? I found these incredibly interesting data points here, and it turns out that just under 3/4 of people who are salespeople that use social selling outperform their peers. Just over half of them are able to attribute closed deals to social selling, and just less than 1/4 of them exceed their quota more often than their peers. So what I'm proposing, to some extent, is I don't think the hard sell necessarily anymore is the best approach. I have people emailing me and wanting to call me and say, hey, we want to work with you, but I don't think that works anymore. I think what's important, and that you've seen through Shopify Masters, AT&T, and BuzzFeed, is that it's about building relationships through content. It's about building that trust and always interacting and being on the right networks and finding where your audience is and what they're doing on social media as well. But the most important thing is making sure that the content is good content. That's the one thing that ties AT&T, Shopify Masters, and BuzzFeed together. But you might be wondering, what is it that makes these guys so special? Why is their content so good? It's just whatever, it's podcasts, it's blog posts. But the thing that sets them apart from the competition is that they're aware of what makes good content. And first and foremost, good content knows that it needs to live on the right platform. So just because Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, you name it, is technically a social media platform, it doesn't mean they attract the same audience, and it also doesn't mean that they have the same type of content. So sure, I could write a forward-thinking, this is what I predict the next 3 years of marketing looks like, type blog post and share it on Facebook, but my girlfriend probably wouldn't care, and my friends and family probably wouldn't care as much as somebody on LinkedIn. So my professional network on LinkedIn might find that to be much more insightful and might want to engage in conversation with me through that. The content shouldn't have to make demands. You shouldn't have to hard sell your product, your service, all the time with your content. And the reason why it shouldn't have to make demands is because it should be so valuable that people want to come back for more. And they start to trust you, and they start to build that personal relationship with you and your business. And it should be consistent. It should be consistently valuable. You should be delivering on a certain level, a certain expectation, and you should be meeting that every time you publish a piece of content, whether that's email on a blog, whether you're posting that to social media, wherever it is, it needs to be consistent. It just wouldn't make sense for me to be sharing thought-provoking pieces and then the next day share crazy cat videos. So what I'm hoping you get from this evening is that I don't know if the hard sell really works anymore. I think from my experience, it's much more about building relationships through good content and engaging with customers, potential customers, clients, to nurture those relationships. It's about the long game. It's about giving them free content, informational content, incredibly valuable content that they can continue to work with and then eventually become a customer of yours.